Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Abby, and we are going to be going over The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Before we begin, I always like to mention that the book club has a wide range of ages. So we like to joke. Sometimes we talk about Lilo and Stitch. Sometimes we talk about boobs in a cage. So use your discretion. There is some heavier themes in this book. Spoiler alert if you haven't read it yet. There is drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, death and murder, obviously, suicide attempts, suicide. So there are heavier themes. So warning with that. And the first thing I do want to address is thank you for everyone for your patience, for letting me be a part of this community despite all the troubles I've been going through. I've had some medical stuff going on, so we weren't able to continue on right now with the filmography stuff, Supergirl rewatching and recaps. Would like to get that started again. Maybe not Supergirl necessarily for October, but more of a Halloween kind of theme with Katie, because she has Dracula, she has Freak Dog, there's slasher, so there's lots of thriller, horror, Halloween-y type things that we can do. And that would be fun to do a little Halloween meetup and have costumes and just, that'd be something fun to do. Also, we did not do a review on Anxious Generation. Maybe sometime I'll do that. Thank you for the people who did read it. I will be honest, I did not finish it. I do want to, especially since I bought a copy of the study guide or review thing. So, we have someone joining us right now. Thank you for joining in. Right now, it's just you and me, so I kind of just started with a little introduction. So thank you for joining. Feel free to unmute yourself, join into the chat. But this is a very exclusive thing to just be in right now. I know a couple other people did go respond to the invite, but I know from the past people just kind of come in as they can or not. So
okay.
I was saying heads up on trigger warnings and stuff. If you haven't read this book, there's lots of heavy themes on it. As we always joke, sometimes we talk about Lilo and Stitch, sometimes we talk about boobs in a cage. And then also this is being recorded. Lately I've been putting them up on YouTube, and then sometimes I'll put them in the reels. If you don't want to be a part of it, just let me know. I'll edit you out. I've done that before for people. So
I might turn off my videos. I'm going to be driving.
Okay, yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Have you been here before in the book club? I can't remember. It's been so long.
No, my first time. I almost finished reading this book. I got to the end of chapter 7 just maybe 2 minutes ago, so I didn't get to finish it.
Appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining in while driving. I really appreciate it, especially since we're the ones only here right now. So thank you very much. Usually there are more people, but it typically is at another time, as I think you know. But I think I'm going to adjust it going on and stuff just because of my work life and other people's work life and stuff. It's just so hard with time zones. So what I was talking about right when you hopped in was the Anxious Generation. I was thanking people who did read it. I did not finish it. I want to. I bought accidentally some journal to go with it, so I do want to utilize it. Maybe we'll discuss it at a later date. So then moving on, my idea to kind of start was I was going to read the synopsis. So as some people know, I have two editions of The Secret History. I have the one that I've been using to read, a very cheap version of it. I think I got the cheapest one possible, to be honest. It's very beat up. I threw it in my bag a lot. And then I took this out of my drawer. It is worth a lot of money. It was my prized book possession for a long time. I'm kind of disappointed that I don't really like the book Spoiler alert, I didn't like it. But this is a first edition signed copy. Katie had mentioned, I think during the podcast, that she also has the first edition that an ex-boyfriend gave her. I don't know if hers is signed. Mine is signed. So I decided to take it out just kind of for this, and I wanted to read the synopsis of both because they're both very different. So bear with me as I start the first one, and I barely crack open the page here, or the cover, because I don't want to ruin the binding. Okay, so let's see. Storytelling in a grand manner, The Secret History is a debut remarkable for its hypnotic erudition and acute psychological suspense, and for the richness of its emotions, idea, and language. There are the confessions years afterward of a young man who found at a small Vermont college the life of privilege and intellect he long coveted, and rarely has the glorious experience of youth infatuated with knowledge and with itself began so achingly realized. Then, amazed, Richard Papin is drawn into the ultimate inner circles, 5 students, worldly and self-assured, selected by the charismatic classics professor to participate in the search for truth and beauty. Together they study the mysteries of ancient Greek culture and spend long weekends at an old country house, reading, boating, basking in an Indian summer that stretches into late autumn. Mesmerized by his new comrades, Richard is unaware of the crime which they have committed in his dreamy, unwitting presence. Once taken into their confidence, he and others slowly and inevitably begin to believe in the necessity of murdering a classmate and a friend who might betray both their secret and their future. Hugely ambitious and compulsively readable, this is a chronicle of deception and complicity, of Dionysian abandon and innocent corruption by self-love and moral arrogance. And finally, it is a story of guilt and responsibility. An astonishing achievement by any standard, The Secret History immediately establishes Donna Tartt as a supremely gifted novelist. So that is the synopsis of the first edition. And now I'm going to read the synopsis of the one that I have, the other copy I have, which, let me see, was published, what was, I don't know what version this one is. 2024. So that was 1992. This is 2024. So it says, under the influence of a charismatic classic professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at a New English college discovers a way of thought in life, a world away from their banal contemporaries. But their search for the transcendent leads them down a dangerous path beyond human constructs of morality. So very, I think, different. The first one, very long. Kind of got winded saying it. The second one, very short, which I liked. I liked it's very, very short. I am going to say between both of them, I don't think reading both of those, I would have honestly bought the book and read it myself. Maybe more the first edition one because I feel like it explains the story a little bit more. The second one, I liked that it was short. Didn't really give us much. And that kind of leads me into my idea that while this book is like 550 pages, there wasn't really much going on. That being said, kind of going off the second edition synopsis, it says that they're under the influence of their professor, who is Julian, their classics, ancient Greek professor. However, I would like to argue that while they are they are a little bit under the influence of Julian, I think that they're more under the influence of Henry. And we later see that towards the end, spoiler alert, but you haven't finished it, Carm, that Richard believes that it's Henry that they've been all under the influence of. And then ultimately, it's Henry that influences their life, even though I don't want to spoil it because it's such a good ending. Ultimately, Henry commits suicide. So the theme of that, not the theme of that, but the results of that affects the rest of the life of the other characters. So it's not, yes, you can argue Julian tempted and kind of gave the students these ideas of what happened for the original murder of the farmer, but only it's Henry that controls it. It's Henry that wants to do it. He was just, I think, a little bit pushed by his professor, but Henry may have been able to do that. It was going to do that anyways. He was going to read on his own, learn on his own. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Does anyone have any thoughts or ideas of who's really influencing the characters of this story? Do you think it is the Professor Julian, or is it more Henry?
I'm gonna agree that's definitely Henry, because the part where I was at, like, during when they were all at the Corcoran's house for the funeral, like, he would be just giving Charles like this like pointed glance, and he would just like completely kind of influence like what the other characters were going to do, and he was orchestrating this whole thing. He was a mastermind behind the entire plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, and I'm glad we agree on that. The other thing that I wanted to take away from the synopsis is that it talks about a world away, which I do agree on, because Professor Julian does cut the rest of the students out of that college life. They're a group. It's immediately noticed towards Richard, and he's kind of mesmerized by that. So they are in this little world away. And so I just think that that's one thing that was really good about the synopsis, because there's also this kind of life that in that small group that they're living that Richard isn't, which is that first murder. And then ultimately Richard comes to that, like I said before, realization that it's Henry that's been kind of controlling him. Like, did he leave all this stuff out so Henry could connect the dots or follow the breadcrumbs? So just kind of what world they're living in. Does anyone have anything to say before I move on? Okay. And then I think also later, speaking of being a world away, and again, I'm sorry, spoilers, this is going to really suck for you to want to finish this after this. But with Henry being dead, when I was looking online, kind of researching more what people's opinions are and thoughts, and yes, I use Spark Notes. No, I haven't used Spark Notes since college and high school. I'm glad that it's still a thing because I used it. But one of the things that was discussed is, why did Henry commit suicide? There was the thought that he sees it as a duty to protect the classmates, his friends. I kind of see that, but in more of a twisted way, that's what he wanted, something he could control because he couldn't control them anymore. And also, and a lot of people said this, which I really liked, it's that he became this hero in the so-and-so Greek tragedy, which is something that he always wanted because he is that controlling person. And then because of that, these characters are then given this life that they necessarily wouldn't have been through if it wasn't for Henry, wasn't for the first murder, wasn't for his suicide. We have Richard, who then goes back to California, a place where he didn't want to be in the first place. We have Camilla, who is without Henry, her love, the love of her life, and without her brother, Charles, who Charles has mental issues, anxiety, he's the paranoia, and the drinking problems. And then also Francis, who tries to commit suicide and ultimately, despite being gay, is forced to marry a wife. And so these characters didn't end up where they wanted or were supposed to be. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions on that? Oh, hi, Tina. Thank you for joining us. I was just going through the list of characters and how their lives ended through the results of the end of the book. So you feel free to talk in the chat or unmute, whatever you'd like to do. You don't have to, of course. Okay. Moving on. Like I mentioned before, I was using Spark Notes. They had some good things that I liked. The first thing, which I didn't realize at first, but maybe if I reread it, probably won't. To be honest, I'm not going to reread it. I would notice this more. But one of the symbols used in this book is snow. And I'm just going to read what Spark Note says. The snow that falls after the group kills Bunny symbolizes how evil and darkness inside each of them is shielded by their innocent seeming appearances. As college students who spend most of their time discussing Greek philosophy and mythology, the five of them do not seem to present any serious threat to society, especially when contrasted with Bunny's friend Cloak, who deals drugs. Like the snow that hides Bunny's body, the students' seemingly pure privilege and upper-class backgrounds protect them from the consciences or even suspicion. However, the longer the snow conceals Bunny's body, the more compound the students' guilt becomes, leading them to act more and more recklessly as time passes. The snow, a classic part of New England winter, whose beauty drew Richard to Hampton in Vermont in the first place, shows how appearances can be deceiving and how outward beauty can always be trusted. The clothing also presents the longer a secret is buried, the more powerful and dangerous it becomes. When I read that, my first immediate thought, because it makes a lot of sense, but also the snow almost killed Richard because he stayed in Vermont during the winter vacation and he had to stay at that mill. And ultimately, because of that, he ended up in the hospital, almost dead. Henry had to take care of him when Henry found out about it. And so Henry's in the hospital, and then he stayed with Henry. Then we later learn, and Richard says this, that he then takes care of others just like Henry took care of him. For example, when Francis and Charles ended up in the hospital, Charles first, when they were in school and because of his drinking and paranoia, and then Francis later on because of the suicide attempt. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions on that? Okay. Awesome. And then I'm going to read one more thing from Spark Notes. In regarding the fatal flaws, one fatal flaw of Julian and his students is their inability to distinguish reality from their illusions. Richard, for example, sees the other students as somewhat mythological figures and is enamored by Camilla because he sees her in this light. Camilla is often considered described as being in this light, and her light hair and her eyes, and just the way that Richard looks at her in a certain setting. Henry, in particular, is living an illusion. Both Julian and Henry seem to see life as a reenactment of a Greek drama. Henry fails to see the dead farmer as an actual person instead of a side character who is merely collateral damage. This misguided sense is also why Henry seems to see his friends as expendable, killing Bunny, nearly killing Charles, and planning to use Richard as a scapegoat. Which I agree in, and that brings us back to what we discussed earlier, which Henry was actually in charge, not necessarily Julian, like the synopsis and other parts of the book tend to try and influence. Though Julian does not play an active role in any of these events, he seems to be more of a director, pulling the strings from behind the curtain and taking a perverse pleasure in it all, only to leave when it becomes clear that the reality has taken over and there may be consequences. I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't really see Julian taking any pleasure in it. Maybe just because I tried to read this really quickly that I didn't pick up on it. But if someone else has a disagreement with that, please voice your opinion. And let me see. In the end, Henry's suicide is not only out of protection for his friends. I don't agree with that either, which we've talked about. But to ultimately, that's true. Henry's suicide is not out of protection for his friends. Yep, so not. But ultimately to fulfill the role of a tragic Greek hero. So does anyone have any thoughts or opinions on anything that I just said regarding the fatal flaws of that? And also, I do want to mention with Charles and Camilla being twins, I am a twin myself. Did not like this. Did not like this book. It's all gross with the whole their sexual chemistry, and then with him abusive towards her. No, thank you. Gross, disgusting. No. So there is that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add or say? Okay. To kind of conclude my thoughts in the review on this book, on Instagram, I asked if people asked me, if I liked it, and someone had put, is it really a perfect book for cozy autumn dates? I agree that it is, because yesterday it was pouring raining here. It was cold. I snuggled up. I opened the window a little bit and I read a little over 150 pages, maybe a little closer to 200 pages. So yes, you can cozily snuggle up and read it. I think you can also kind of read at whatever pace you want. I tend to try to read it faster just because I wanted to get through it. I felt there were so many things that weren't needed. This could have been a 300-page book, not 500. It was just, I think parts weren't needed. Some things are too descriptive. So it can be a quick read, longer read if you want to really soak in those details. But yes, it can be a cozy read if you'd like. And it can also be cozy if you did what I did, was to celebrate the finish of it with a glass of wine, because you can certainly get cozy after that. So cheers to that. And on that note, there's also a lot of drugs and alcohol and smoking in this book, which I don't know if the author was trying to kind of repeat that college mindset. I think she was fairly young when she published and wrote this book. I think she may have been in her college age herself. On one end, I appreciate it. On other ends, I thought it was excessive. And I did not like how that became really only some of the things we knew about the characters. And maybe that's because this was in Richard's point of view, so that's how we saw them, and we didn't necessarily get something more descriptive on them. Like, I really only remember Charles as being a twin, and then Camilla only being a twin, and that in the end, her and Henry have this thing, but that Richard likes her, and that Charles really only has these addiction issues and this anger and this paranoid, which he, I think, had the most character development. Francis, he's rich, just like Henry. Henry likes to give money out. Not likes to give money out. He has the money to give out. I just felt with the other characters, because it's so long and parts of it were so descriptive that it could have just been more than them merely hanging out, smoking and drinking. Does anyone have any thoughts or things on that? One thing I did like about this book is that the ending I thought was unpredictable. I didn't expect that, and thank you to the person who messaged me that the ending was unpredictable, because that really got me excited to finish it, because after so many pages, I think it took me about 100 pages to get into it, I got really excited for the next maybe 50 to 100 pages. And then after 300 pages, I was like, come on, can we just, we know what happens. Let us know. Like, we don't need to know that you're going out to eat or something. Like, just get to the point. What happens? So getting to that point where it really picks up and Charles really starts to spiral, and after he's in the hospital, I really like that. But I think it's really only 50 pages, if that, in the book. I also didn't really like how, maybe I missed it, I could be completely wrong, how we didn't really get an ending regarding the case. We get the ending that Henry thinks that it's by him committing suicide, that it's going to be all over because no one's going to say anything. But really the only thing that we know is that the feds have moved out because of the case, because it's not part of their jurisdiction. So ultimately, I guess, in the end, it's what the group predicted, that it's going to become this local case. Police just assume that he was drunk or something else. But I feel like that could have been closed up a little bit tighter. Let me review my notes. Okay, let me see. So that is really all that I have written down regarding The Secret History. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add or say? Please feel free to use the chat or unmute. I think I have the right chat open. Let me double check. In call messages. Yep. Okay. And then after that, if anyone has anything to say, we'll move on to just very short, quick topics on random things. I do want to say that hearing that this was Katie's book, one of her favorite books, one that I think it's one that she always wants to have a copy with. I'm very sad that I didn't like it. I know that I'm not the only one. There's been quite a few people who have messaged me, direct messaged me, that they didn't like it either, that they haven't finished it, that it was slow to finish. So I think that's very disappointing. I think this is probably the #1 most disappointing reads that I've had regarding her recommendations. So sorry, Katie, but that's just my opinion of it. That being said, I can understand why people like it. I think maybe if I had read it in college or in high school, maybe I would have liked it more. I can't say 100%. But I've seen on Twitter, like, all the lists, like what is it, 10 books to get to know me, and Secret History is always on it on a lot of people's. When I talk to people that I run a book club, oh, have you read The Secret History? It's always brought up. So I was very disappointed in that my prized possession book, my signed first edition, is a book that I don't like. I'm not going to get rid of it though. You know, it's an investment. So it's gone up a couple $100 since I've had it. So I guess there's that, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm disappointed. Okay. So if no one has anything else to add, I understand that, oh, wait, not that I understand. Let me see. How do I want to phrase this? In the beginning, I was talking about how I was so thankful for everyone for being so understanding, that I haven't been consistent because of some of my medical issues. Going on forward with that, I am going to try to be better. I do want to bring back the filmography choice, which we have been doing Supergirl, but because this is October, it is Halloween season, it's spooky season. I would like to go more on that theme. We have our book, which is a thriller book. I mean, yeah, Secret History is a thriller book, but I don't think it's going to be, this is more, Stephen King wrote a review on it, so that's going to be more spooky. But I would like to take a little break from Supergirl and maybe do, let's see, there's Slasher, Dracula, and Freak Dog. I am leaning more to Freak Dog because personally, I haven't seen it. I think a lot of people would enjoy going kind of further back to the Katie archives because a lot of people are fans through Supergirl and other more of her recent work. Dracula, I would love to do Dracula, but I would like to pair it with the Dracula book. So I feel like that it's not timing right now, maybe next year. And Slasher, I think that could also be a good choice. It would be a lot longer. It would be a season just like we do Supergirl, and it's already it's the 9th, so it's a third from the month being over. And maybe also accessibility. I have to take a look. So if anyone would like to voice their opinions on what in October a filmography of Katie would be, please let me know by unmuting or in the chat or on Twitter and Instagram. Okie dokie. Let me see. Is there anything that anyone would like to talk about or add? I know Katie's had something come out recently. I forget what it's called. Shame on me. Is there anything anyone likes to talk about? Costume ideas for the Halloween episode or something? Because I'm between a cat, because Katie was the cat, or Stitch, because that's a theme on our thing, and then also Katie was the Stitch during the con. But costume ideas, Halloween episode, book club ideas, any recommendations, thoughts, please feel free to vocalize that now or later. Okie dokie. I guess that's really all that I have. Thank you very much for joining in. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I can't help but vocalize that over and over again. So that's all I have. Once again, thank you. I will probably be putting this recording on YouTube, so if you have any concerns over it or questions, let me know. Okay. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining in. Bye. Take care.